Panel note, I am 19 years old. Chronologically, I'm by far the closest person in this debate to being a baby. Therefore, in this right alone, we need to win this debate. But putting that aside, even though that wins the debate on its own, I'll have 2 points of extension. One, how this harms the welfare system massively. That specifically harms the individuals who are worst off in this debate. The children and the families who won't be able to sell their babies, expanding on what we already get from Sella. Secondly, on why the choice itself that poor families are going to be put into by this motion is a form of mental torture and therefore should not be allowed in this debate. Before that, one extremist point of rebuttal to what we hear from Hadar. Because essentially what we get is mostly, look, parents are going to present this to the child as the child being worth a lot of money because they paid so much for him, and therefore expanding on what we already get from OG is going to be much, much better off and going to be very happy. 2 notes on this. First, note that the likely alternative isn't not telling the child anything, but telling the child that he is worth more than any amount of money in the world. Note that this is specifically true, given that the families that we're talking about that are relevant to this debate are families that are likely to would have adopted on the different side of the house. Therefore, the child knows that the parents probably have to go through great lengths in order to actually achieve having the child, want him massively, and therefore he gets even greater of that ability according to their logic. But secondly, even if they're right, note, we think that the notion of my worth being a comparative thing, meaning the parents telling me that I am worth X amount of money, even if the tax is very large, is problematic. Why? Because there's always going to be someone whose parents have paid more in order to get, right? We prefer a non-comparative notion of love, which happens on our side of the house, when parents tell him that his value can't even be valued in money or any type of numerical value because he's so important to them. Right? You say that's what happens with a lot of families. A lot of families in status quo that don't do either adoption of this. This is likely to happen much more in families that specifically have done this thing of adopting, which is like, you know, people who adopt children really like them and because they have to do these things. No, thank you. Why does this harm the welfare system? And this engages with what we get from opening government. Look, it sounds like this motion is going to be something that people are going to do when they need money, right? And that rich people are going to buy, and given that intuitively selling children is something that sounds better to individuals, the people who are likely to do this are the poor families. Note, this gives a huge ability for people to advocate for underfunding the welfare system as a whole, and specifically things that have to do with families and children. This happens to a large extent whenever supposed new economic possibilities happen to poor families. Whenever factories are open, tariffs or like taxes go down, etc. Right? Now, supposedly, every family that is poor and needs money has the ability to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing this thing. This is something that's likely to be known. It's likely to massively increase people's ability to say that these people don't actually need welfare system, right? Like to the same extent they did it before. That we shouldn't take away the hardworking people's tax money in order to fund individuals that have a relatively simple process that is accessible supposedly to anyone in order to achieve more money. Why does it matter? Because these people who are going to be saying these things aren't right factually, right? Not all babies are going to be bought, as started by opening opposition. Specifically, there's a limit to the amount of rich individuals that exist in society, and most of them belong to like a certain socioeconomic group, right? What this means is that in many cases are going to want children who are similar to them, who look like them, and that means that families that are of minority ethnicities or religion are going to have far less accessibility to this ability to earn money. Why does that matter? Before I do that, opening.
Many parents don't adopt today because they have very limited choice. Letting them pay for more choices means more parents adopted previously, while subsidizing the care of the most unwanted
Thank
children.
you. I'm going to engage with it later, basically. Okay. So I've explained why it's likely to only be accessible by the people of the majority ethnic groups. Why does this matter? Because population groups who cannot use this ability are massively harmed, right? They say that, look, these parents are going to just give these children to the welfare system and therefore the children aren't harmed. But if OG are right, and listen to Neta's analysis, right? Because in many cases they just say that the first point from the Prime Minister says that many families do not give the baby to the welfare system even if they cannot properly use it, right? So in many cases, babies are going to be left in the families that didn't have the ability to make money, and that family now has significantly less money because of all of the incentives that I've described before. Note, moreover, a lot of these families already gambled on bringing a baby to the world and possibly selling it. That process in itself is immensely expensive, and moreover, raising a child is immensely expensive by itself. So those families now have much less of an ability to invest in that. Those children are much worse off, and those are specifically the children who are most vulnerable in this debate, and we think that's a massive impact to our side of the house. Let's talk about the choice. Look, we think that selling your child intuitively sounds terrible to many individuals, right? Because most people really love their child. It's a dominant narrative in society. Moreover, people think about what other people are going to think about them, even if they specifically are okay with selling their child in order to make money. What that means is the people who are likely to do this, as said before, are very poor individuals who desperately need the ability to do this, right? In many states, there's simply a lack of good welfare system overall, and therefore these people's ability to earn money is going to be mainly on this thing. These people are going to have to face the choice between skipping meals for them and their children for a long period of time and selling one of them or making a baby and then selling them immediately to a significant extent. This is an impossible choice for these individuals, right? Because they say, because of the narrative of children being the most important thing in the world, these people are going to have to live for every day of their life with the notion of having given that thing up, and not specifically for money. They're going to try to say that this is symmetric to adoption. But with adoption, mostly, as OG say, I'm doing it for the benefit of the child. But the cases who are relevant to this debate, the cases who are going to be the delta in this debate, are specifically the people who do it for money. I'm going to now give up the thing that society told me that is the most important thing in my life for something that is material, right? That's a terrible choice that I'm going to have to make. And I'm going to think about it and regret either choice that I make throughout any day, every single day of my life moving forward. This is a form of mental torture. We say that it's very similar in many cases to having lost a child, because the damage is going to be created by me giving up on the value of my own child. The thing that in many cases I think is so important to me is massive. Note, we think that a world where people have to give up on one child in order to save another child is a terrible world most of us wouldn't want to live in. We're sending these people to exactly the same world we're proud to oppose.